Hey guys, hope you're having a good day. So a couple days ago, somebody asked me if I thought anything positive was going to come out of all this pandemic stuff, all the changes we're going through, all the scary times. And I told them absolutely. I think there's all kinds of good stuff already starting to happen. I know in my world we are putting together ways of communicating and processes that we were never going to put together prior to all this starting, but now we've been forced to, and a lot of that stuff's not going to go away just because we can start hanging out and doing things in person again. That excites me. But I think there's something else, and something even more profound that's going to happen coming through all of this. You know, in the past, I always heard people say things like, well, when life gives you lemons, you need to make lemonade. And that just sounded like some Pollyanna bullshit. And, you know, everything happens for a reason. And I'm going, really? A reason? What? I got no evidence to that effect. I know a lot of religious people think it's all sort of God's great plan, but that's just not how I believe. If that's how you believe, that's awesome. It doesn't work for me. Especially in situations like this. I don't believe that everything happens for a reason, but I do believe that everything happens. And how I choose to move through it can either make it pointless and terrible, or can make it an experience that allows me to grow and be better prepared for whatever comes on the other side. That's a choice. So, what do I think is going to be some of the good outcomes from this thing? Well, we've got to back up a minute. I believe that one of the accidental byproducts of the development of Western culture post-World War II is that each successive generation has had the resources to put more and more of their focus on themselves and less focus on community. That's not a good or a bad thing, it's just a thing. It's brought about some amazing art and some amazing philosophy, but it's also brought about a disconnectedness that we didn't count on. See, the more I think about me and the more I make me the center of my own universe, the less connected I feel to you, and the less connected I feel to God or a higher power or whatever you want to call it. It's all connected, and I'm not connected to any of it. You know, I don't think we got fat in this country because of McDonald's and corn syrup subsidies. I think we got fat because we're uncomfortable in our skin, and food fixes that a little. I don't think the market created the problem. I think the malady created the problem. The spiritual disconnect, the dis-ease I have in my own skin. And so we eat. Food was my first drug of choice at 6 years old. It was harder to get a handle on than heroin, for Christ's sake. So we spent the last decade walking around basically staring at our hands, looking at our phone, looking at our screens, looking at our monitors. And more we're living our life on social media. And there's research that shows that every time I get a like, or every time somebody makes a comment, or my phone goes, ding, you have a message, it releases a little bit of dopamine in my brain. The same sort of dopamine that gets released when I have a conversation with someone, or when I make a real connection with someone. But it's like saccharin. It's sweet, but it has no nutritional value. It's not actually feeding me. That's why people get so upset when people aren't liking their posts enough or something, because it really feels necessary for survival, like connecting with other people actually is. And we become more and more disconnected and more angry because of it, and more full of self-pity because of it. And politics has become more and more angry and loud and freaked out because of that disconnection. And now we find ourselves forced into a situation where we've got nothing except the screen to connect through. For a lot of addicts, you have to hit some kind of a bottom before they're willing to actually make a change in their life. It doesn't have to be something catastrophic, but it has to be getting to a point where something inside shifts and the addict thinks, wow, what I'm doing is not working at all. And I don't think it's ever gonna work. And so I'm going to have to find something new even if I don't know what that is. And I better start trying to find somebody to show me what it might be. I suspect there are an awful lot of people in society right now are hitting that sort of a bottom around this disconnectedness. My only way to connect to other people, besides my wife and my dogs, is through screens most of the time. It's better than nothing. but not a lot better than nothing. And it's my hope that because of how long this is going on, and it's not anywhere near over, don't kid yourselves, we're going to be doing something like we're doing now for a long time. That being forced into this situation is really going to have to make a lot of people examine what they're doing on here, because it's getting weirder and weirder. People are getting more and more vitriolic about politics and all kind of stuff, and conspiracy theories are popping up everywhere, and it's just this disconnection, because we were accidentally connecting with each other walking around out there in the world, even if we didn't mean to, even if people were just annoying and why are you talking to me, you don't have dialogue in today's episode of me. But my hope is that when we go back out into public, when they finally lift the shelter-in-place orders and we're able to be around other people, that the power of the connections as they return, as we begin to really connect with other people in person, the power of that is so profound that it's palpable, and that it really draws a sharp contrast between what we were doing online and what we're actually doing in person. And that it will be the beginnings of a new common good, a new common welfare, new tribes. You know, in one of his books, Eckhart Tolle talks about how at one point in the evolution of the earth, there were no flowering plants. And then at some point, one plant began to flower, and it made virtually no evolutionary difference. And over a long period of time, gradually a few more plants here and there began to flower. And then we hit a place where it got to about 7 or 8% of the plants on the planet were flowering. And in a very short period of time, evolutionarily, you went from 7% to like 80-something%. Because it didn't take getting to 80% for things to change. The tipping point came at just a small percentage. And I suspect we're going to see a lot of that in our own culture. One of the key things that makes recovery possible for the addict is they walk into a meeting somewhere and they see all these people. And when the people are talking, they used to be stuck down that same rabbit hole that the addict's trying to crawl out of. It's obvious from the way they talk. But they're all happy, and they're really, really not in that place anymore. And it becomes very attractive. And it makes the person who's trying to get sober believe that maybe if I just do what they're doing, I can start feeling the way they're feeling. I suspect as those of us who feel that shift happen and feel this desire to connect with other people, get out there and begin to do that instead of trying to live our lives online. And we really start connecting with folks, and we start finding the happiness that that generates in our lives. That other people who aren't finding that yet are going to start seeing communities where that's happening and start going, what the hell are they doing and why are they happier than me? And eventually start asking some questions and be able to find a way to climb out of that hole themselves. I'm very hopeful for that. This pandemic, America has been like an alcoholic sliding off into a slow alcohol addiction for years. And the pandemic is like adding crack to the equation. It has ramped things up big time. But that may be the very thing that drives us into a willingness to try and examine what's going on and how it might be better. I think all kinds of things are on the table for discussion now that weren't even ever going to be on the table, or maybe not for decades. And I'm very hopeful about that, because that crisis that finally drove me into the rooms of recovery and finally allowed me to start asking those questions about how the hell are these people happy when I'm trying not to, all I want to do is just stop hurting and not kill myself. Being driven to that place was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I believe we may be on the cusp of that sort of a cultural revolution. I hope so. I hope so. Because an awful lot of people are wandering around out there in their lives just scared all the time, just angry all the time, not knowing what to do, not knowing what's missing, trying desperately to wrestle some sort of peace out of the world, and it just never comes from there. I don't think I'm special. I just think I finally hit a place of willingness, and I met some folks who could show me what to do next. That's part of what these videos are about. I'm trying to just share what I've been finding. If it speaks to you, great. If you can find something else that works for you, great. But you got to find something, because the thing that most of us are doing these days just isn't really working very well. And what little bit it was doing isn't enough now that we've been removed from people and removed from culture and removed from the thing that feeds us by its nature. We need each other to survive. It's an evolutionary thing. And I have to get to a way where I can start recognizing the need for that connection and figuring out what to do to maintain it. Anyway, that's just the thoughts I've been having. I'm excited about where we're headed. There's no telling what it's going to look like. It may get worse before it gets better. It sure as hell had to for me. But hang in there. Keep moving your feet. You know, stay in touch with the people you can stay in touch with. Use the tools you do have so that you can stay present and not give up. Because better things are coming, I'm certain. Anyway, that's what I got. Thanks, folks.